This vlog was going to start top 5 light mechs in Battletech, pushing up to the archive to give those of you new to the game some ideas, some starting points to grow your mech collection, your tactics, your player personality on there. And what was interesting is just looking at the matrix, looking at tonnage versus speed versus weapons, what 5 mechs come out towards the top on there. And this mech appeared on all of my lists. So let's talk about the Jenner, because one could argue the only light mech that you will need, besides an urban mech for the lulls, is a Jenner. It excels at all roles on there, and if it's pressed into certain situations, it can more than hold its own. So naturally in Battletech, if we're going to take the Flea mech with its tonnage, I believe that's the lightest mech without going into proto-mechs. I'll have to look at the tech manual. You guys will correct me, those of you techs out there with a greater command of knowledge, but for now, indulge Fritz, and the Flea is the lightest. And then on the higher end, we've got, the Atlas. You've got the awesome, these 100-ton assault mechs. You've got the Stalker. So obviously there's a big difference in tonnage, and the more tonnage, the more options, the more ability to build things out. We see this really, really tremendously in the light mech class, because in each class, light, medium, heavy, and assault, there's a spread. A light mech on the lower end of the spectrum is vastly different than a higher tonnage light mech. And the lines become a little blurry on there. This is why you can't say all medium mechs could take out a light mech. If you have a light mech on the heavier end of the tonnage spectrum in that weight class, but at the same time you have a medium mech at the lower end of the medium mech class, the line gets very blurry. So the Jenner, with its tonnage, it packs a lot in there. It really, really does. And really the only criticism that I could find about it doesn't have hands. So we have speed. The Jenner has massive speed on there. That means it works perfectly as a recon mech. Perfectly. I would argue it works better as a recon mech than dedicated recon mechs like the Locust. And I love the Locust. My goal is to become the most feared Locust pilot in the Inner Sphere on there. The weapons we're looking stock right now. The short-range missile pack and the medium lasers on the Jenner means, as a recon mech, if your opponent sends stuff out to kind of harass it and keep it at bay. So normally what I would do is, if I see you've got, if we're doing combined arms, and you've got a light mech that's going to try and work its way back to scout something out, or maybe deal with a couple of long-range missile carriers or some support artillery, light artillery, I'll send in some warrior helicopters on there just to kind of drive you off, or maybe I'll send out my own light mech on there to kind of drive you off, or at least keep you engaged and slow you down. I can't really do that with the Jenner, because you have the weapons output of a medium mech on there. I have to commit some pretty serious resources to put that Jenner down, because it's going to make it into my back lines, and with the medium lasers and the short-range missile pack, it's just going to tear things up. Okay, so I have to almost send 2 or 3 times the tonnage to effectively deal with it. Armor is okay on the Jenner. I mean, that's really the best you can kind of say with a light mech. But its speed ability means, this is where it's a little bit deceptive in a good way for the Jenner pilot, for the mech warrior. You have enough speed that you can constantly keep your hex modifiers up, that your opponent's going to have to stack on a lot to hit you. You have the speed that you can stay at range. So often what we see when shooting at a Jenner is the attacking mech has to run to keep up, to try and get in range, or to try and cut down the range. That's going to be +2 right there. Then I'm going to be at medium or long range. That's going to put on an additional modifier. Then the Jenner's moved a lot of hexes. That's going to put on a modifier. You're going to need 10s, 11s, 12s to hit it. And the Jenner has the speed that when it wants to get close enough to blast you, it can. It's so fast on there. So moving into the weapons, a lot of light mechs, if we're looking at the Locust, you have a primary weapon, which is usually one medium laser. And the medium laser is the best weapon for a light mech because in terms of tonnage, in terms of damage output, in terms of heat, it works the best on there. Then you've got some secondary weapons, usually machine guns, things like that. The Jenner with its weapons means it can engage heavier mechs. It can take on a direct attack role, is what I'm thinking about here. In that we often see a bodyguard mech is where you have a medium or a heavy or an assault mech moving in, and you have another mech that works with it to try and get rear armor or to try and kind of tag team things. The Jenner with the speed, if the Jenner gets behind my heavy mech, even if I'm running a Battlemaster or a Dragon, right? It's got rear-firing weapons on there, medium lasers. I don't want a Jenner behind me. Heat is a limitation on the Jenner, but you could push that heat. It's worth it. If you can get rear armor, a Jenner could engage a Battlemaster rear armor. If you have some other elements forcing me. If you have if you're sending in a Warhammer and Jenner are moving forward to my Battlemaster. And for whatever reason, all I have is the Battlemaster, right? I've got to just hold my own. I got to hold this pass, whatever. I got to stay facing that. I have to stay facing that Warhammer because I got to try and keep my front armor facing it, and I got to try and engage all my weapons. Jenner gets behind. It's not just a one medium laser pop gun and maybe some machine guns. It's everything on there. That's absolutely crazy. Another kind of interesting tactica is, as a deep recon, if the Jenner's running around and you give chase, you can flip those paddles backwards and start shooting them on there. It's like the quick draw. So very, very interesting tactics, literally where you're running and you're shooting the medium lasers behind you. That's going to cause me to hang back a little bit on there. I don't really want to be eating that because I'm probably not going to hit you, but you might be hitting me. Just a fantastic mech. I believe in terms of the inner sphere, I know House Creed has got a lock on a lot of them, but in the inner sphere, I would say the Jenner is the best light mech that's out there. Your thoughts? And we'll look to build a top 5 list on there in a moment, but the Jenner appeared on my list everywhere.